It now being 6 p.m, according to resolution of the House, proceedings are now interrupted to enable the Honourable John Ruddick to make his first speech without any question before the Chair. The member has the call.
Another reason libertarians don't like big government because mankind is from time to time subject to irrational, harmful mass delusions, especially when melded with big government. COVID is merely the latest case study. One of the benefits of separating church and state was that if a religious grouping did get delusional, at least the delusion was contained and not magnified by state power. Let me tell you the story of William Buckley, an escaped convict who was warmly adopted by an Aboriginal tribe in the Geelong area. Buckley spent 32 years living in the Australian bush and then walked into the Port Phillip Bay colony in the 1830s. Buckley expected to be punished by the English for being an escapee, but the English were fascinated by his account and employed him to foster good relations with the Aboriginals. Buckley then wrote a gripping book which contains an episode where his tribe and the surrounding tribes were in a mortal panic. These tribes held the supernatural belief that the world was held up by a powerful man who used ropes to keep things in place at the end of the world. There was panic because the word had gotten around that the strong man was getting weary. And if every tribe didn't immediately send him all their food, tools and weapons, the world would definitely implode. Buckley's tribe and the others around furiously obeyed and handed over everything they had, and then raced atop a mountain, hoping it might provide some protection if the implosion came. Buckley wrote of this episode, "But who the old juggling, receiving thief was, I could never make out. However, it is only the same sort of robberies which was practiced in other countries of what is called Christendom." Buckley was correct. Mass delusions are a universal phenomenon. The pyramids of Egypt are impressive, but the pharaohs likely concocted an apocalyptic delusion to con countless poor souls to spend their lives in back-breaking work to build fancy graves. Half a millennia ago, the then all-powerful church convinced the peasants of Europe their relatives were suffering in hell. But if they handed over money to the church, then they'd get an escape pass. As soon as a coin in the coffer rings, a soul from purgatory springs. This indulgence scam went on for centuries. It was a powerful elite tricking and robbing the poor and laughing in luxury. Now, I know this is not the view of this chamber, but please hear me out because occasionally minority positions are vindicated with time. Is the global warming orthodoxy yet another mass delusion turbocharged by big government? We're not allowed to question the global warming science, but if we can't question it, is it science or propaganda? Those who insist on questioning it are not just told they're wrong, they're heretics who must be punished. Since the 1980s, we have been bombarded with predictions around rising temperatures, rising oceans and shrinking ice caps. These predictions are not materialising. At most, it's a zigzagged 1 degree Celsius rise in 150 years. This is a remarkably stable era for temperature compared to the geological record. And every time there's a natural disaster, we're told, oh, this is proof of global warming. But in every case, a sober analysis reveals these calamities are in line with natural cycles. Surely if we're going to embark on re-engineering the world's energy supply, we should ask the hard questions. Why was global warming rebadged climate change? Is it because the warming didn't arrive? We were promised cheaper energy through privately funded renewable energy, but we have ever-soaring power prices despite endless government subsidies. That trend line is unending. Why are the promoters so hostile to nuclear energy when everybody agrees nuclear is the least carbon-emitting energy source? Is it because the promoters are not invested in nuclear? And should we listen to characters like Al Gore and Greta Thunberg, who have zero qualifications in this field? Gore has successfully cultivated an image. He is a Gandhi or a Mother Teresa-like figure. But over a decade, the New York Times speculated Gore was the world's first carbon billionaire. Gandhi and Mother Teresa, of course, led penniless lives. Are the carbon credit schemes the indulgences of our time? For 130 years, the Labor Party has strived to defend low-income earners, the battlers that today are struggling while making rich people richer. When it's pointed out that perhaps the science is not as settled as we are told, some get upset. But surely it would be a good thing if we weren't facing a global apocalypse, wouldn't it? It seems like some want to press ahead regardless of reality because it is in their commercial and political interests to do so. The 1960s saw the rise of a new movement, environmentalism. That once fringe movement has won the debate around a clean energy and protection for what is left of our natural world. I fear that good movement has been conflated with and hijacked by a money-making scheme called global warming. In 2009, I found myself not far from here in a reasonably friendly private debate with a high-profile climate change activist. In the middle of her berating my scepticism, she casually threw her cigarette butt on the street. It was a small incident, but revealed so much. The climate change movement has become disconnected from real-world environmentalism. The political forces across the Western world who spent the 20th century advocating for the big government utopia of socialism, disappointingly, did not learn from the collapse of socialism in the early 1990s. And overnight, morphed into, let's now have a big, powerful government to save us all from global warming. It's forgotten that the nations with the most degraded natural environments are the once socialist utopias. My preference would have been for environmentalism to have branched out into advocating for animal welfare and the protection of endangered species and native forests. But there's little money to be made in those noble causes. Human domination of the planet is on balance a good thing. We're the only species smart enough to protect all life from asteroid impacts, etc. But that said, we have established safe domains for our families now, so we do have a moral obligation to protect the remaining species and untouched pockets of nature. When I fly interstate, I insist on a window seat. I see endless productive farms that sustain us all. I see some untouched native forests and bush, and I want my descendants for the next millennia to enjoy and learn from those sacred places. So, Mr. President, can I ask my parliamentary colleagues, who are now convinced that they too should become a libertarian, to form an orderly queue out the front of my office where I will help them complete a membership form. Thank you.